Porrick, if I can ask you to switch back on your camera. Wonderful. Look at that smile. Oh, I missed that smile. So listen, just following on from some of Alan's comments there, we know that people have reservations about joining these programs. It is not an inconsiderate ask to commit to 2 days a fortnight over that time period. You'll be asking questions about whether it's worth it, who will be there, is it worth my time, will I get on with the rest of the people, will I have time to actually run my business, right? We get those kinds of questions all the time, and they're all valid questions, and we'll always tell you the good side of that story, and Board and Mona will always tell you that it's important. But it's really useful, we find, to be able to bring a previous participant back to from I won't say the horse's mouth, because that's not a nice thing to say about Porrick, but to hear it firsthand, their experience, what it was like to engage first with Board and Mona and to apply and to go through that process, and then warts and all what the program was actually like. So my colleague Angela Duffy, who's joined us here as well this afternoon, another one of the Resolve Partners co-founding team, is going to have a conversation with Porrick O'Toole, who is the CEO of Automsoft, who were one of the first participants on the Accelerate Green program back in February of this year. So Angela and Porrick, I'll leave it over to the two of you.
Thanks very much, David. So yeah, I guess I'm part of the team, but I wasn't on a program with you, Porrick. So to make it more authentic, the guys asked me to have the chat with you instead. So we only met yesterday because we had a quick hello call and had a quick chat. So I guess we talked a little bit and got to know each other's backgrounds and a bit about ourselves. And I suppose that's a good way to start. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of background on yourself? And I actually thought it was very interesting, your path in terms of career, but personal through to career, and how you ended up in CEO of Automsoft.
Okay, yeah, I was head of Western Europe for a company that we had spun out of MIT and floated on NASDAQ, and we had a bit of a roller coaster ride, and then we were doing a merger with Novell, and I was in the south of France with a friend of mine who was a VC, who said, "It's time to move on. I've got a great company for you. We've invested in," and that was Automsoft. And it looked like we had a possible acquisition within 12 months, so it looked like it'd be a quick opportunity to get in and get out and make a few quid. And as a lot of these things happen, that wasn't the way it worked. So a bit of background to the company. It was founded by some genuine data science engineering guys who had built technology for collecting and storing and analyzing data from automation systems that you find in plants and factories and industries that have high degrees of uncertainty around their manufacturing process. And the idea was that they would be able to crunch really large volumes of this sensor data and be able to make sense of it faster than everybody else. And they did build their technology, and it was really good. But in a classic background of engineering-led companies, they did it without having any idea about who the customers would be. So that was kind of why they thought they had great technology and no customers, and maybe I could do something. So we sold it into biotech and we sold it into pharma, who had that problem. And that went well, but it was an incredibly long sales cycle. And we sold it into the oil and gas business. But we had a few traumas along the way, but by the time we got to, I guess, 2017, 2018, 2019, then we got locked down. We were really just bumping along the bottom. We couldn't figure out how to grow this thing with these interminably long sales cycles, and we knew we had great technology. So then Alan called me and said, you might have a look at this and see if you're interested, and maybe we'd have a chat and see if we're interested in you, and see where it goes. And by this time, we had one of our customers was Board and Mona, and our technology was being used to monitor their wind farms. So we were collecting all the data from the wind farms and the turbines and everything, and we were producing these dashboards that they were using to see how much they were generating and what the health of the turbines were, and so on. So that was kind of how we got to this point, I guess.
I suppose in terms of the detail there, where you're talking about capturing data and collating that and displaying it, you could look at that now and say, gosh, there's a lot of people who do that. So how is it unique? How is it, fulfilling a need for some of these companies? I'm from a tech or a med tech background, sort of the sort of science pharma, big operational side. So I have some sense of that. Maybe go through it from some of those early stage customers to maybe what you do for the likes of Bord na Móna might give the audience a better idea of the technology itself and the value.
Yeah, I think there's a really thin line between having a technology that's really unique and having a technology that nobody else has because there's not a big enough market for it. So you kind of need to figure that out. So there's lots of data companies out there, but managing sensor data, so time series data, produces particular architectural constraints. So you can't really manage it using a traditional relational like SQL-based database because you get a huge amount of unused space, and even in a cloud environment, you end up with huge costs for relatively little benefit. So what these guys had done was that they had literally architected. So what they did was they took the shell of a database that was being used by the guys who run the particle accelerator in CERN and in Stanford, and they had repurposed that object framework structure to create a database engine that had incredibly fast ability to ingest large amounts of data and retrieve it without a huge hardware overhead. So in a sense, typically the way that these things work is that the more data you have, the more hardware you need, the more processing power you need, and they've kind of broken that link. So it was a really interesting engineering breakthrough. The challenge was that you needed to find people who had very large amounts of that kind of data that they needed to crunch really quickly. And when I say large amounts in the pharma industry that you'll be very familiar with, you're talking about, say, in a bioreactor, you may be sampling a temperature or something at 100,000 times a second. So you've got to be able to hold all of that data and still be able to analyze it, search through it, and produce, analytics that are meaningful and useful for the people. So that was kind of the background. That was kind of the uniqueness of the technology. It's interesting because the Accelerate Green program totally shifted us. The experience of the Accelerate Green program shifted us. And my conversations with Alan at the start were, this could be a really good thing for you. I went back and talked to colleagues and stuff, and we generally came to the view that we were around so long that we had definitely started tramlining in our thinking, and we were struggling to innovate, even though we felt that we had something in the work we were doing around clean tech for Bord na Móna, and we had done some stuff with the clean tech people in EI, and that hadn't yielded any kind of breakthroughs. And our kind of initial breakthrough was probably the first session on Accelerate Green, when we talked about what value do your customers get from your software, or from your technology, or from your product. And we realized that, I realized, because it was me, that I was making lots of assumptions about the benefit that Bord na Móna were getting without really having asked them. Like, they were happy. We knew they were happy. They kept on paying their bill, which is good. But I never actually sat down and said, what exactly do you use it for? We were just assuming that we knew what they used it for. So in that conversation, in that first session at Accelerate Green, what's your proposition? What's your value? Why do customers buy from you? I was given a spiel, and I was realizing deep inside me that I wasn't really very sure of this. So that triggered me to, Angela, I may not be following your structure here, but that triggered me to go back to Bord na Móna and start having conversations about sitting down with them in detail and saying, how do you use our stuff, and why do you keep paying your bill? And like a lot of the time with tech companies, and well, all companies, you're kind of afraid to go back and do that with your customer in case you're triggering a thought on their part, which is, well, why am I paying this bill? And why do I use this stuff? But so that led us, and I guess the Bord na Móna dimension is really important in this, because and we've had a great relationship with them, and they've been a great customer for us. But they gave us huge amounts of their time, partly because of the commitment to Accelerate Green. But we got a lot of time where conversation after conversation, if your software did this and this and this on top of what it does, that could change my day in this way. And here's the other thing that keeps me awake at night that you don't help with at all. But if, and I don't know if you could help with it, but if you could find somebody who could help, and so on. So we started having these conversations during the process. So there are a number of things happening in the Accelerate Green process. First of all, was that we started with this moment of all the stuff that you think you know, when you start to get challenged on it, you start to find that you don't really know it at all. You kind of know some of it and some of its assumptions. And that push on what's your data? Do you have solid data points? Like, for example, I mean, I said to you, Angela, before, we knew why the pharma companies bought our stuff, because there was a US government regulation that said they had to have their data in the structure, and we had fed that. And so we had signed deals with people like Pfizer and Baxter and Sanofi and so on around the world. So that was good. We knew that. But we wanted to, the clean tech space is just manna from heaven. You know, it's got investment, it's got innovation, it's got massive growth. And then, as I said to you, as we're going part of the way through the Accelerate Green program, the Ukraine thing happened, which meant that wind energy, renewable energy suddenly got an even greater acceleration factor. So we really, but also that part of that acceleration factor is that it attracts people who have got huge scale to go, hey, there's big money in here. Maybe we can go in and do stuff. So you've got bigger competition coming in after you. So you've got to consolidate what you've got, learn from what you have. And as we were going through the process, we had so many different people talking to us about things that you don't get conversations about ordinarily, like pricing, for example. You can do, you know, your full MBA, nobody's going to talk about how you price software and when you're pricing too much and when you're pricing too little. I had great conversations when I went back to Board Nimona. I said, you know, I think we need to increase our prices. And they go, oh, I'm not sure about that. I go, well, you know, I've been on Accelerate Green that you sponsor, and they said we need to increase our prices. So
great excuse, Paul, great excuse.
We had a great conversation, and Tom Egan in Board Nimona said to me, I'll go with a price increase, but you got to show me where you're going to give me more value. So that was back to, okay, so we'll take the dashboards that we give you, and we will get all this other additional information like spot price of carbon, stuff that you're having to go hunting for every day. We put all of that in the dashboards as well. And so we found ourselves becoming less of a data management company and more of a specific applications, business intelligence, decision support technology company. And that's a shift strategically. A lot of us on the program made that shift. I mean, the guys in Cameramatics, when they started out, and they're very open about this, their pitch was around driver safety and fuel economy. And as they went through, it was, we really think we got an opportunity here around environmental sustainability, and that's becoming more. So we had speakers in talking about why sustainability is a big metric in CEOs' performance measures. So that trickles all the way down to when we do a new deal, it's got to add something to sustainability. So I get my bonus at the end of the year. So they are starting to shift their stuff. And we had a great experience because it was very collaborative. And as Alan said, you know, there's a lot of mutual learning goes on. There's a real camaraderie that's built sometimes very late at night in the bar in the Tullamore Arms or Court or whatever it's called. But they were great conversations too. You know, conversations at 1 o'clock in the morning around, you know, when are you going to go for funding? What do you think about this shift? We've got this pitch coming up, and in the middle of it, one of the guys had a massive pitch in the UK, and everybody in some way was engaged in a conversation about giving ideas to refine the pitch, and we all kind of felt a sense of belonging to that. So it was good. But so I think from where we have been, Automsoft as I mean, we're still a data technology company, but we're probably much more of a decision support renewable energy company, and that's really where our shift is going to. And since Accelerate Green, we've done an enormous amount of work. I'm delighted to say our revenue is substantially up this year, and things are looking really good. We signed a bunch of new deals, but we're also aggressively going after that renewable energy market. Our proposition has been really tightly refined, and that was another part of it. Was and we had a great. Sorry, I'm brain dead a little bit.
You keep going. It's great. I agree. This is fantastic.
We had a great session where we went through websites, and you know, and so the website, you go up the homepage of the website is, you know, make the world a better place. I can't remember who was running the session, but it was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, specifics.
And then we all started going back to our own websites, and we all had a version of make the world a better place by buying our technology. I realized that wasn't really helping anything. We went through a very complicated and intense process around what is your message that you can give, the 30-second elevator ride, but that isn't waffly. And it's, there's an old saying, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. I mean, distilling something down is really hard. And what we ended up with was generate more power and sell it at the highest price. We didn't say anything about technology. We didn't say anything about how our solution works. And as engineering and technology people, we realized that all the time what we sell is functionality. We've got this more functionality, more functionality. What people are buying is, how does this change my day? So if I circle back to finish to Tom Egan's comment to me, Tom Egan said, Tom is the head of the renewable generation. And he said, look, when I come in the morning, I look at your screen and I've got 60% of my information. And then I got to look at the spot price of carbon. I got to look at the future price of gas, the current price of gas. I look at localized weather reports for each of my wind farms. I got to go through each one of those and see what the likely generation capacity is. And then I have a look at what the forecast maintenance is for our turbines that we out. And then out of all of that, I've got to decide on what my pricing strategy is. And then I look at the air grid market and I see, who's bidding what into it. And then I have to make a decision. Do I bid 80%, 90%, 100%? Do I hold some back? Do I hope that I'll get an uplift on my pricing? And I got to do all that before 10 o'clock in the morning. That's my business. So our job was, how can we make him, how can we enable him to make decisions quicker with all the information he needs in one place, so that by 10 o'clock, he's been able to make his decision, review his decision, analyze it, refine it, and close it down. And when we started out, we weren't helping him to do that. By the way, he's a senior guy, so he gets a checkbook. That's also very important. So we figured, make Tom happy. Tom's got a checkbook. This will be good. So it was a big shift for us, not just in modifying our technology, but it was a whole realignment of the way we looked at the market and went to market with a proposition instead of. And it was funny because I went back afterwards and looked at other technology companies, and all software guys, and I can only really talk about software, retreat back eventually to saying, look how cool the technology is. We're cloud, we've got AI, we've got AI. But it's like, that doesn't matter. It's like, can I sell more power? It's the customer focus,
and that's where, so a lot of the things you say without me even, having any to and fro here, is it's really about being challenged. It's about the stepping back, as you say, and saying, I've made a lot of assumptions. And as Alan pointed out, we are the first people to challenge your assumptions and send you back out to the customers. So it is about the customer and what their day-to-day is like, what their challenges are, what they need to achieve, and their outcomes. So you build for their success. But you can see, even in the conversation around the board, Namona and Tom and others, that them now, them really well, and what they do day to day and what they have to achieve. So we have a big focus on that, and it's come right through in what you're saying. So that's part of what we'll do. We will send you back out to, understand your own customers. I suppose one of the other things, and you touched on it there a bit, is the format. So we do get the pushback. David mentioned it about, I couldn't commit that time. We're very deliberate in doing it in an in-person setting, and deliberate in having it in a semi-formal kind of structure, bringing a lot of different speakers in, enabling you to build relationships with peers and with a network. Can you talk a little bit about that and the pros and cons? Because this is your story and not mine. I wasn't, even there the last program, the program you were on. So tell us about that piece and, the goods, the bads, and maybe the uglies or whatever.
I think it's a very interesting point, actually, because you look at it and you go, oh, 2 days every 2 weeks, that's a killer. And then mentoring sessions, how will I get anything done? And you realize when you're in it, you realize this is the most valuable time you're spending. What's a killer is actually not getting out of your business, and needing to, if you need to control everything and you can't step away for 2 days every 2 weeks, something wrong, something bigger wrong. You just don't think you can, but you can, because the world doesn't stop when you're gone. And what we found, we did have that apprehension, without a doubt. I definitely had it. I don't know if my team had it. They may well have been delighted to be rid of me, but I found that it also forced me to delegate more, to leave people to make more decisions than I had been. And, you know, there's pretty much nothing that's going to go on fire over a 2-day absence. It's really not. And you can always check in. Guys, if they had to make a call, they went and made a call. But the kind of contract was, look, it's really important, it's really urgent. Your business comes first, you're still running a business. We're going to be flexible around that. But you need to commit to this thing. And that's really what it's down to. So, you know, you're not in a padded cell in total isolation. You need to go outside and make a call. You try and schedule it around lunchtime or something like that, to be respectful to the other people that are there. And the longer you spend there, the more you realize that the time you're spending there in the group, in the discussions and the talks, is really, really valuable. And sometimes you end up dropping out of something because you got something really important on, and realize that you missed something that was really substantial, and you end up trying to drag it out of people later on that night because they're all saying, this was really striking, didn't expect it to be, and you're thinking, damn it, okay, so what was it, what did they say? So first of all, it's not a huge commitment. People do, you know, various training courses and stuff like that that take them out of work. We do numerous meaningless meetings in business generally, sometimes because the customers want to do them, but we waste a lot of our time. I think this is time really, really well spent. I think the guys in Resolve were really respectful of our time. And it was, what I did find was it was really intense. They don't do rest breaks or waffle time or anything like that. It was like, you got to lunch, you're going, okay, thanks, we take a break. Well, we got these 3 speakers for you at lunch, and they're just going to talk, grab a sandwich, sit down, and we'll keep going. So you were quite tired at the end of the day. We got about an hour at 5 o'clock to 6, you know, have a shower, go work out, go for a run or something like that. And then we're back in. The evening speakers, I mean, stuff that, like, it isn't just, here's some guys who ran great businesses and made a lot of money and look how successful they are. We had Vincent Cleary, the CEO of Glennisk, and his factory burnt down. Everybody knows his factory burnt down because he was all over the TV and everything. But he talked about that. You know, how do you cope when you woke in one morning and your business is literally in ashes on the ground, and you've still got orders and stuff like that? And how do you keep going? And he talked about the kindness of strangers, and he talked about, you know, the structure and the way he went after it and the emotion of it, and all things that are not stuff that anybody's ever going to teach you in a business school. But you sit down and listen to somebody like that, and you get an understanding of the need for resilience and the reservoirs of resilience that you can find in a crucial time. So it's much bigger than just let's make your business run faster, because what does make your business go better is much, much bigger than the traditional stuff of sell more stuff and make more money. To do, oh, that's what you need to do. But to do that, there are so many moving parts. And part of the process was showing you stuff that, you know, bringing in somebody to talk about an aspect, something they did well that went great, something that they did that looked great that was a disaster. And really from so many different backgrounds and so much variance that, you know, a guy who came in who managed to buy a chain of dentist stores in the UK and redesign them and sell off 10 out of the 100 in order to make back his money, and then build up the other, and you know, listen to him talk about it and asking him questions about what his thought process was and why he saw there was an opportunity where nobody else saw one. And those are all things that you then go back and start to apply to your own business. So I think to go back to, sorry, I'm answering in a very long-winded way your question about the commitment, but what I'm trying to describe, I suppose, is that there is a breadth of value that you get from that commitment, that it's highly concentrated. So you will be tired without question, and you will be challenged, and not challenged in any way that embarrasses you. You're not stuck in the spot and kicked around the place. That's, you know, I think it's very respectful. It's very respectful of the achievements of people who have got to this point to be on the program. It's respectful of their commitment, that it values their time, and it's respectful of their dignity as people as well. So there's no kind of let's humiliate this guy in order to show a lesson to it. That doesn't happen. What does happen is a great deal of collaborative exploration, challenging, and as people get more comfortable, the challenging gets heavier and heavier, but it's welcomed. And that pushes people into reassessing their own kind of red lines, if you like, the stuff that they took for granted about the absolutes about their business. So my business could be something slightly adjacent to this that might be way more profitable if I modified this. I can honestly say in the time I've run a number of different companies, and I've done various programs and lots and lots of third level education, and this was probably amongst the most valuable periods of time that I've spent in my career.
Thank you
really
very much.
No, really,
I mean, we couldn't.
I can't, like I came back, I convened a meeting of all of my people. I brought over my guys from the UK, and I went through the Accelerate Green slide decks that I thought were ones that we needed to think about. And I have them all over again this week, and we were talking about Accelerate Green this morning. So, and we finished in early summer. So it's still informing us, and we're still going back to the materials, and we're going back to the challenges that we got to say, you know, we don't want to lose this either. This forced us back into an innovative way of looking at ourselves and thinking, and therefore, you know, we want to make sure that we build on this and build on this and build on this. And I know the guys are attempting to create a network of alumni and so on. And I think that would be very valuable.
Yeah. And, you know, I have a phrase that, and we'll run out of time, but, you know, sometimes you need to slow down to speed up. And Alan's a great guy. He's always slagging me off for my little phrases and quotes and things, but, you know, to take that step back and to be surrounded by, and we find it hard to describe the program. I know Alan talked to it there, but being steeped in it is slightly different experience. And I think you've done a great job, and thank you for this time to explain that.
You're very welcome, guys. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure, genuinely.
Thank you very much, Pádraig. And I'll hand over to Alan, who's popped up there because he's looking at his clock and saying, come on now, hurry up.